This is Wired to Want, Episode 1. Costco is a casino and you never noticed. The game was rigged before you even walked in. You just didn't even know that you were playing. Think about the last time you went into Costco. Paper towels, eggs, maybe a rotisserie chicken, and you told yourself, I'm in and I'm out. And you were. But as usual, when you left, you were $300 lighter. You see, the house always wins. And this house just happens to be a Costco membership. And here's the part that should bother you. You can't fully explain how any of this sorcery happened. You remember where you parked, you remember the spicy little meat treat, but how did you just finance the next world war? Well, most people chalk it up to themselves. It's poor willpower, it's weak discipline, it's not enough of a plan, but hey, at least you saved $4 on wholesale gas prices. Here's the truth. Most all Costco customers are absolutely addicted to the actual experience. Not to the products, but to the experience. And that addiction was not an accident. It was all architecture built deliberately by the people who understand exactly how the human brain makes decisions. Costco is not a store, it's a behavioral system. And just like therapy, this is going to get uncomfortable fast. Walk into any grocery store and signs hang from the ceilings, they're on the aisles, telling you exactly where everything is. The bread's over here, go over here for dairy, cleaning supplies, dog food, baked beans. The store is designed to help you find what you came for and leave quickly. Costco does the exact opposite. There are no product labels on the aisles, just numbers. Items everywhere move on a rotation schedule. And the thing that brings most people through the door every single day, you know, those Kirkland cases of water for $3.75. They're physically placed as far from the entrance as possible. And this is not poor store design, this is actually a cost-saving measure. Costco has a name for what they've built. They call it the treasure hunt. Because a treasure hunt is not just a shopping experience, it's a reward-based experience. And every reward experience does something very specific to a human brain that ordinary shopping never does. When you find that unexpected deal or a brand new product, your brain releases a little burst of dopamine, and Costco has essentially weaponized the feeling of finding a $20 bill in your winter coat every single visit. In the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner ran a series of experiments that would eventually shape the design of casino floors, social media feeds, and apparently every Costco warehouse ever built. He called it the variable ratio reinforcement schedule. And here it is in plain language. If you ever press a lever and you always get a reward, you always press steadily and stop when you have enough. Predictable reward produces predictable behavior. It's controlled, it's rational. But if you press the lever and the reward sometimes comes and sometimes it doesn't, something completely different happens in your brain. You start to press faster. You actually press it more frequently and you become almost unable to stop because your brain's no longer chasing the reward, it's actually chasing the anticipation of the reward that it cannot predict. This is the mechanism behind slot machines. It's also that same mechanism behind the scroll on your phone that you can't put down at 11 p.m. when you should go to bed. And it's the same mechanism that Costco has deliberately baked into the physical layout of every single warehouse it has ever opened. You know where the peanut butter is, you walked past it last week, but as you get to the aisle and realize the peanut butter is no longer there where it used to be, your brain enters a state of seeking, a treasure hunt, the Costco treasure hunt. And as you begin looking for where it's being placed now, you're walking up and down past displays and products of things you never knew existed. And when you find something unexpected, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurochemical that fires when a slot machine lands on 3 cherries. Finding unexpected items triggers the release of what they call the happiness chemical, and Costco does not leave this to chance. The inventory rotation is deliberate. Products are moved specifically to keep members from going autopilot and keep your brain in the seeking state to keep you walking deeper into the warehouse. The store layout says, "Good luck finding what you need, but congratulations on discovering what you don't." Here is the data that makes all of this concrete. According to foot traffic data from Placer AI, the average Costco member spends 37.3 minutes inside a warehouse on a standard visit. That's 9 minutes longer than Walmart, that's 10 minutes longer than Target, and Costco is the only major retailer to actually increase the dwell time between 2021 and 2024. Your brain cannot easily exit the loop that it's been placed in, but the layout is only the first layer. Before your brain enters the seeking state, before you've even touched a cart, something else has already happened. Something so precisely engineered that it makes a $175 impulse buy feel like you've pulled off the heist of the century. Ladies and gentlemen, it begins with a hot dog. And if I told you that a $1.50 lunch strategy was the opening move in a billion-dollar psychological strategy, you would think that I've lost my mind. Then you would look down at your receipt and realize they got you too. Since 1985, Costco has sold a hot dog and a soda for under $2. Last year, Costco sold 245 million hot dogs with an estimated annual loss of almost $30 to $50 million. But they continue to move forward every year intentionally. In 2013, the then CEO Craig Jelinek approached co-founder Jim Sinegal with a modest proposal. Rising beef costs were squeezing margins. Maybe they could raise the combo to $1.75. Sinegal's response on record was, "If you raise that hot dog price, I will kill you. Go and figure it out." That was not an emotional attachment to a sandwich. This was a business decision, a precise instrument of consumer psychology. And here is why it's worth $50 million a year to protect. The first number your brain encounters sets the reference point for every number that follows. Behavioral economics call this the anchoring effect. It's one of the most documented phenomena in all of consumer behavior research. And it means that after a $1.50 hot dog, a $35 bottle of olive oil actually feels reasonable. A $180 cashmere sweater feels like a deal, and a $300 television almost feels cheap. Your brain is not comparing those prices to the outside world. It is comparing them to the anchor Costco set before you even took your first step onto the warehouse floor. The data shows the food court is not positioned near the exit by accident. It is positioned so that your first purchase before a single item even goes into the cart is a $1.50 meal. Study shows that Costco food court visits extend the average shopping time by 31 minutes and increase total cart value by 14%. That is not a hot dog perk, that is an opening move. And while the anchoring effect is resetting your price perception, a second mechanism is activating throughout the warehouse floor: free samples. Most members treat them as a bonus, a nice reward for making the trip. What they are, though, is a different layer of the same system. We have all experienced supermarket purchases that are impulse-driven, and what we know is that 60% of all supermarket purchases are impulse-driven. They were not on the list when the shopper walked in, and at Costco, the sample station is the trigger point for significant portions of impulse decisions. In fact, the Journal of Retailing found that product sales increased up to 2,000% following in-store sampling. Not 20, not 200, 2,000. The reason has nothing to do with whether the food was good. The primary mechanism is a principle that psychologist Robert Cialdini documented in what became one of the most cited works of marketing psychology. Reciprocity is the deeply wired human social drive that says when someone gives you something, you feel compelled to return the gesture. Cialdini's research found that customers were 42% more likely to purchase after receiving a free item. Not because their opinion of the product changed, but because the act of receiving created that obligation. The brain needs to settle. A 2-inch piece of pizza on a napkin creates this psychological debt, and most people pay it without even registering that the transaction has happened. The variable ratio layout keeps your brain searching, the anchoring effect makes every price feel like a win, and the reciprocity response converts a free sample into a sale. Every single one of these layers feeds the next, and the system continues to compound. And none of this reaches full power until you understand what happened before you set foot inside. Ladies and gentlemen, you paid to be here. Not just today, every year. Between $65 and $130, you hand Costco money before you've even bought a single thing. And guess what? You renew it happily, year after year. And here is what that money actually buys. For the fiscal year of 2025, Costco generated $5.3 billion in membership fees. The company's total net income was $8.1 billion, and that means that membership fees alone represent the foundation of Costco's entire profit model. Every product on the warehouse floor is sold at an average markup of just 11%, sometimes at a loss, because the profit was already collected before you even touched a single item. The membership renewal rate in the US and Canada is 92.9%. Executive members, the ones that pay double at $130, renew at close to 95% and account for 73% of all global Costco sales. These are not satisfaction numbers. Satisfaction is whether you like something enough to choose it again. 92% of renewal is something else. It's something that behavioral economics have studied for decades under a specific label. It's called the sunk cost effect. The sunk cost effect means that once you have made a financial investment, your brain becomes motivated to justify that investment by continuing the behavior. You are no longer making a neutral decision about whether you want to go to Costco this weekend. You're actually defending money that you've already spent. Marketing researchers describe exactly what runs through members' minds. I've got to make sure that I get my money's worth by stopping there every chance I get. This is the same psychological force behind gambling behavior. The gambler who has already lost $200 does not think that they should stop. They think, I need to keep working to win it back. The Costco member who paid $130 in January does not think, I will stop by whenever it's most convenient. They say, I need to justify the fee. And here is what separates this from ordinary brand loyalty. Traditional brand loyalty is emotional. You choose something because you trust it, you like it, you identify with it. And loyalty can often be broken by a better offer from somebody else. What Costco is built is not loyalty, it is behavioral commitment. And behavioral commitment is self-reinforcing. The more you spend, the more you need to justify having spent it, and the more you justify, the more you spend. It's a loop that does not break, it actually deepens. 130 million people are inside the system right now. More than the entire population of Japan. Each one is psychologically committed to a warehouse store that they paid to enter, in a building with no aisle signs, surrounded by rotating inventory after a hot dog that has not changed in price since Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The variable ratio layout, the anchoring effect, the reciprocity response, the sunk cost commitment, these are not sales tricks. This is applied science. Think consumer psychology, behavioral economics, brand loyalty, and neuromarketing, built into the concrete and steel of a warehouse and operated on 130 million people every single week. Now here is the part that should rattle us like a shopping cart with one bad wheel. Costco did not invent any of this. Costco has perfected it and we have bought it. Every single principle that we've just learned, the variable ratio layout, the anchoring price, the reciprocity response, the sunk cost trap. You have the data behind the decisions, and now you know that it's not by accident because we are all wired to want. And before you go, how much of this has ended up in your cart before? Jump in the comments right now and let us know how much did you spend at Costco last week. I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot more than you think.